to own it. Just wanted to take the time, learn all the things that I could about you. Now it's such a mess here. Oh, we are just stressed here. Used to be so easy with you.
Thank you for coming on my show today.
Thank you for having us.
So I've seen you guys for a while. I've seen your supply, and then there's a great story behind the merch. So you got to tell our viewers who you are and what you do.
Yeah.
I'm Don Bain. This is my wife, Kelly Bain. We are Rory's Inspiration Lapidary Arts. We've been doing the Clovis Farmers Market and other markets. Clovis is our hometown, but that's our main thing we do on Friday nights, starting in May. It all started 10 years ago. I lost my son to a suicide.
How old was he?
He was 19. And we collected just specimen rocks. And after we lost him, I stopped doing it altogether. I wouldn't go out collecting.
And that was something you did with him?
I did that, yeah.
Where do you guys collect those at?
We collected a lot over on the Central Coast, down in Mojave Desert, Nevada, Arizona. And I said, and up in our Sierras, up around Dinky Lakes Wilderness area.
Okay.
And that was one of his favorite spots. There's an old tungsten steel mine up there that we collect around the boundaries of the property. And so anyway, when we lost him, I stopped doing it. I mean, I wouldn't collect. And my buddy talked me back into it. And there's a place where me and my son also collected above Pine Flat. And there's a rare mineral up there. It's only found in 2 places in the United States.
Wow.
And so when my buddy talked me back into going collecting again, that's where we went, and we were hard rock mining, and we found another chunk about the size of a mush ball. And at that time, I could not cut a rock, so I took it down to Lapidary Arts on Belmont and asked them to cut it for me. And first thing they said was no. They knew me and my son very well, and that's when they told me to join the Fresno Gem and Mineral Society, that I could learn how to cut and polish stones. And so that's where it all started. And it took me 6 months to talk her to learning how to do her wire wrapping. So I built up a collection of cabezons. That's what they're called after you grind them and polish them down. And so then, I mean, it's been, but the whole thing is.
Well, what year was this that he passed away?
2011, April 1st. We just celebrated 12 years. We just celebrated
on
12
April
years.
Fool's Day.
April Fool's Day.
Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
I do not like April Fool's Day.
No.
You know, and so.
Wow.
But yeah, it's.
Yeah, he came to me about a year into him cutting and polishing, and he was like, honey, maybe you should learn how to wire wrap. And I was like, no, that's just not my jive. Like, I barely wear jewelry, and you know, like this is a special moment for me. And he said, and I just said, no, I'm busy. You know, I work full time. We're also in recovery, so we can talk a little bit about that. We've been sober 15 years, and so like I was working with other women, and I just had no time. So he just kept going and, you know, cutting and polishing and bringing all these things home. And we were, like you said, drilling a hole and putting a clip bell in all of our friends.
People just don't even know how much goes into it.
Right,
we really
right.
Don't.
Yeah, and so people were saying, oh, can I have one? Can I have one? You know, in our fellowship and our friends and everything. And they kept breaking, you know, because as you start drilling into them, if they're soft rock or whatever, they start breaking.
It creates a weak spot in the stone.
See, that's a lot of learning.
Yeah. So I told her I'm not drilling.
Yeah, so you need to learn. And I was like, the whole thing was I was really fearful of like how to do it, you know, like, oh my God.
Well, and you see him messing up. And
I'm 45 years old and I'm going to start a new project, right?
Right, it's a lot, yeah.
Yeah, so I decided I'd go to the Gem and Mineral Society. They have free classes, right? And he's there and he's cutting and polishing, and we have no idea that our business is going to, you know, turn out the way it is at this point.
Oh yeah, I can imagine.
And when I started wire wrapping, and I hated it. I cried. It hurt. Your hands don't work that way until you start doing it after a while. It's just like anything, you know what I mean? You start working your hands like that, and then I can do it in my sleep now.
Was it really rough on the hands?
Yeah, it's really hard, and you get, you know, a lot of people get carpal tunnel, you know.
Imagine.
Yeah, and so I was just using like a, you know, a really inexpensive wire, and I was just learning, right? And I'm going to these classes every Monday night, and all of a sudden people were buying them from me. And if you look back at my pictures now from the first ones, it's like, oh my gosh, right? But I kept at it, you know what I mean? And I guess it was about 2 years into it, we decided, two of my girlfriends, let's get a booth at the farmer's market in Clovis, right? So we had one table, one of my girlfriends had one, and one had another booth, and we were on 4th Street down there, and so by the next year, we had already got our own booth. It took off really, really well. And we got, Clovis has been a big supporter on the edge in Clovis. I don't know if we can say that here. But they put our pieces into their coffee shop.
So if we want something designed personally, can we come to you about it has to be like based on what you have and what you can do. Do people come with you for custom made of something they have in
Yes.
mind?
Yes.
People have brought us their own stones.
Okay.
And of course, Kelly has to look at them to see if she's able to do it.
Wow, okay.
But we have probably 1,000 stones right now, accumulated, and it turns all the time, just depending on what we have. Like this Larimar, we probably have 50 different pieces, and as we sell them, then we either acquire the material at Quartzsite, Arizona, or we have sources, and because we buy the rough material, we don't buy things that are already cut and polished. He does all the cut and polish.
You have a project, don't you?
See, the thing is, like with this piece right here, if somebody wanted something bigger or smaller, we have those stones in a case where somebody, okay, I want that one.
And so
that's where the custom order will come in. They could do it that way too.
When we first started in that little tiny booth with 3 people, I was trying to do it there at the farmer's market, and I was too distracting.
And then do you also do woodwork too?
No.
No, just stones? I thought I'd seen this. So it's
just
stones
stone.
in it, but it's not just necklaces, it's others. So what is the other component?
Oh, I do bolo ties.
We do bolo ties, we do bookends.
I've done belt buckles.
Okay, that's what I was thinking.
Bookends,
Okay, I saw that. That's what I knew it was something more than just that.
We do whatever, if you can figure it out, I can usually do it now. I mean,
she
it's
does
been a learning
custom
process.
earrings.
Custom
with the
earrings,
stones.
whatever. We do, most of our sales are from our custom pieces. People love to come to our booth or wherever we are and pick their own stone. And then I do it. And I only use 3 metals. I don't use any craft wires or anything. It's all high quality material. And I mean, it's taken me 9 years to get there, you know what I mean? I mean, I didn't do that overnight. I was using, like a field wire for a while because it was least expensive.
That makes sense.
Now I'm up there and, I use 3 metals, sterling silver, copper, or gold filled 14 karat gold. And so that's, reflects the prices in our booth, and we also have stuff in a store in Old Town, so they're ready to go pieces.
I love that.
Ready to pick up, if you want something for a gift or whatever. I have
So you mentioned about being sober, and then obviously your sobriety started before your son passed, which is just unfathomable because that usually would make you go the other way.
We were 3 years sober when that happened.
Yeah.
So what do you want to explain about the dynamics of that, and how do you have other children?
No. He was our only son.
Yeah, it's my stepson. So when we met, we've been married for 18 years.
Yeah.
And when we met, Rory was about 8, I believe. Yeah. And so he lived with his mom, but he came live with us. And so he.
And do you have children too?
No, I don't have any children, but he was my child as far as I'm concerned.
And then you only had the one child. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So he was my child as far as I'm concerned.
Course, yeah.
You know what I mean? And so. When he passed away, it was April Fool's Day, and we got a phone call, and he come home, and he told me that he committed suicide. And we sat in our bed because of our sobriety. We both looked at each other and said, "Are we going to drink?" And we both decided, no, we were not going to drink today. We were going to call our sponsors. In Alcoholics Anonymous, we have a sponsor that keeps us accountable, that shows us how to stay sober and things like that. And so we did that, and we had a house full of people.
Within 30 minutes.
Within 30 minutes. And at his service, I mean, we just had pictures from all his friends, all got together on Saturday. It was April Fool's Day. And they all went to Big Hat Days, and they all sent pictures to us. Yeah, they all still get together, his best friends.
On the day of his death.
Yeah, and there was over 500 people at his service.
We're still in contact with a lot of his friends.
So who called you to tell you that he had passed?
He went.
My ex-wife.
Yeah.
Yeah, she called and says, I need to talk to you. I need you to come over right now.
And you knew it's important.
It was important.
And it was April Fool's, and I'm like,
That's what I'm.
here we go.
I was wondering how many
here
people
we
were
go.
going to think that when they
Yeah,
said
so,
until
I mean-
because that's hard to be like. It was like no, and it's like oh my
Yeah,
gosh, this is
we didn't have a
serious.
bad relationship. We just didn't have a relationship, you know,
Okay.
with his ex-wife. I mean, we did it
You had
because
a good
because of
co-parent.
Rory. Yeah.
And it's like when I went over there, I mean, I was there for 45 minutes to an hour. I mean, we all cried, we all hugged, and I came home and told her, you know, and it's like right now I'm getting emotional over it, but the thing is, before I got sober, I know what that mental health, and that's what it's all about. That feeling of desperation and not knowing what to do. And when we got sober, and she has 5 days more than me.
Yeah.
I mean, I always have to say that. But
Yeah, it's over 5 days before.
but you know, I know what that low point is. And with my son, he never showed any sign of depression, nothing.
I hear that a lot.
You know, and the way I can explain it to people is like there's the commercial, right, where the lady holds up the placard, and it's that fake smile. You know what I mean? Because people can hide it so much that we don't know. You know, and my son, with his best friends that saw him every day in school, you know, at City College, had no clue. As a parent, we had no clue.
Well, this is scarier because now we don't even have warning signs to look at.
No.
It's,
Well,
you know, and the thing is, like with our business, I've always said, it's not about selling stone. Like if you come to our booth and we start talking, you show interest in stones, then our story comes out about what it is. Or we have a placard on one of our displays, and there's a story about my son and suicide hotline. You know,
What did he want to do? What were some of the things that he, besides collecting rocks, what else did he?
he was going to be a geologist.
yeah.
So that was his passion.
Yeah.
It was his
He was
passion.
accepted to Fresno State.
Yeah.
He was 19 years old, and he was going. That was his.
Yeah,
goal.
he's still going to City
And
College.
everything was just going the way it should.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Was
the
he
way
in a
it
band?
should.
Was he sportsy?
You know what?
Something?
He was into music. He wasn't so much into sports. I mean, he
Big
was
time
in with
music.
music with his
Heavy.
with two of his friends. And yeah, and it's like it was more electronic type music. I don't know nothing of I mean, back then. At least it wasn't one of the music I do not care for.
Whatever, right? The kids thing.
Yeah. But yeah, it was. He loved his rock and roll. He loved heavy metal. But him and his two other friends were in the electronic music.
Yeah, another thing, you know, when we were getting sober, you know, in those 3 years, he used to come to meetings with us all the time.
Yeah.
And he knew the program. You know, this kid, you know, I mean, he obviously, you know, was.
He was highly intelligent.
You know.
Was he one of those people that was staying away from substances because of what had happened to you?
You know
guys?
what? When they did the autopsy, they said there was marijuana in his system.
We knew that.
Which
part.
is, you know,
Well,
that's,
Yeah.
I mean,
I found
it's,
a lighter,
but no,
you know what I mean? I'd
but
be
no,
interested in that.
no
didn't know.
alcohol, no
Right,
no
I
other substances,
Yeah.
anything like that.
So where was he living at the time that all this happened?
He was living with his mother, my ex-wife.
And who created this whole let's go collect stones? Like when did that start? Why?
It started when he was actually before we ever, me and my ex-wife got divorced. You know, we'd go to the coast, me and my son, we'd go fishing, we'd go camping, whatever. I'd pick up rocks. So that started when he was like 5 or 6. By the time he was 9, he was learning more than me. He was mentored by a man named Stan Vance, which is part of our Gem Mental Society, which he volunteered at the Lapidary Arts on Belmont.
So he was teaching you everything.
Yeah.
My son ended up teaching
Rory
me.
taught him,
My son ended up teaching me.
I
and
love
then he
that.
taught me. So
Yeah.
that's
I mean, yeah. I knew what a jasper rock was. I mean, it's common everywhere along the Central Coast. I mean, if you go to the beach and you look look at rocks. I always tell everybody, you know what a river rock looks like, right? Brown, ugly. You don't touch them. Just leave them there. But if you go on the beach and you're seeing rocks that have color in it, reds, yellows, that's a jasper.
So a lot of the stuff you made was stuff that he collected. A lot of the stuff.
Well,
you made,
not his grandfather has a lot of that collection.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the stuff that I do have some material that me and my son did collect, and I cut it once and it'll never be cut again. I will not do anything. It's just, it's there.
We have some pieces that my
yeah.
mom has in a curio cabinet
Yeah.
that we've cut and polished, and that's what it's
Yeah,
gonna
but
stay.
it's not,
Rory's
that
piece.
stuff is never going to be made into anything else.
But we keep doing it.
Yeah.
We keep finding them. My favorite thing is to go to the beach and do it. See, he goes up and he goes in the desert and he goes where it's hot and where there's snakes and all that kind of stuff. And they hike and I stay home.
Well, you've come a long way. We don't need you to do everything. You've done a lot.
I do all the other stuff. I do all
done a
the
lot.
social media.
Yeah,
That's a lot.
She does all that.
You know how that is.
But you know, it's like I said, it goes back to the mental health thing. I mean, that I was talking about. It's talking to people one-on-one, getting to know them. You know what? We've had so many experiences with talking to people. And one of them, I'll tell you about. And this was last summer at the Clovis Farmers Market. We had 3 ladies coming to our booth. One was from Colorado, one was from Oregon, and another one lived here. The one lady that was from Oregon came to our booth, saw the blue lapis piece that my wife did, walked around the corner, read the article, and left. Just walked away, Came back about an hour later, bawling. She goes, that piece spoke to me. I says, I need it. It reminds me of my son. She had just lost her son a month before.
Wow.
Yeah.
And she couldn't handle the emotions with reading
I can
everything.
only
And,
imagine.
so that is one thing, and it's talking to people like that, knowing at that time, it's been 11 years for us at that time, right? I says, it still seems like yesterday.
Yeah.
I says, and you're brand new. I says, get involved with mental health. Help other people with the experience you just been through. And in turn, it will help you deal with the loss. You have to reach out to help other people. And that's what we found out.
Do you tell people, and that's because we have different dynamics. We're not going to go back to alcohol. Not only that, now we're going to make a business in his memory of something he liked. How do you do all those things? And
it's just the part about the alcohol thing does come up, because you'd be surprised how many people suffer with that, and it is the mental health. It goes hand in hand. You mean?
Well, when we first started, too, we gave a portion of ourselves went to survivors of suicide, which is no longer an entity. Okay,
It is.
The lady that started that was her mother committed suicide 20-something years ago, and she decided she was done doing that, and so they moved that whole thing to Hines Hospice. So and then COVID hit. Okay, so now everything's all up in the air, but a portion of ourselves used to go to survivors of suicide. So now we're on hold, and it's all mental health.
and eventually probably.
And yes, it's gonna roll a different way, but there's so many things that we want it to be nonprofit. We do not want it for profit, of course, right? But we do. I mean, just yesterday, I got a text about this long, from a lady from, I think it was Arizona, that just wanted to tell us that she was thinking of us because I posted, or Channel 30.
You can say that. You can say
Yeah,
anything,
Channel
don't
30 had interviewed us, right? And, she had seen the article, and her son had just passed away.
A daughter.
Her daughter, yeah, whatever it was. But this is just constantly, daily. We get those kind of things. That's why we have an actual Facebook page called Rory's Inspirations, not under my name. It's called Rory's Inspirations, and so we get a lot of that. And we don't care if we sell stone or not. It's
Right.
about reaching out.
Yeah, it's about
And that's what we can
helping
do.
people. That is our goal.
And when we lost Rory, 6 months after that, one of the girls that I sponsor in our fellowship, her son committed suicide, and we went there. We hadn't even grieved our own, and we were there to help her. 6 months after that, another girl, her son. And 6 months after that, my girl that I sponsor's husband committed suicide. And it was all within that first year.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so I was there to
It's just to
you know
show
what
you,
I mean? It's just
and thank God for Fresno County Mental Health and the programs they're doing now. I mean, they, in the last 3 years, their programs, if you've seen all the stuff they're putting out there, you know, but that's one thing, but I think it takes people like us to say, you know, hey, we're survivors of that, and this is what we're doing to make it even more than what it is. I mean, be involved in the community of Clovis. I mean, and being out there.
You're survivors that also thrive, that have a thriving business.
Well, that's the thing is, I mean, it's the thing is, you
awesome.
can.
I'm
If we didn't get the help that when I first went to Survivors of Suicide, I didn't like it, but you know what I mean, because
we have our
I had my own solution, right? You know, and it was a program that I wasn't fitting in with the people, and it's a great program for a lot of people. But I met with Geneva one-on-one several times, you know, with that when she was running it, and it changed her life. I mean, so it is a great program. You know what I mean? I can't say nothing bad about it. You know, if people are struggling, you know, after a loss, it's the place to go, or any type of grief counseling.
So what was Rory's favorite color and what was Rory's favorite stone?
His favorite stone,
had to be probably a specimen.
it is, God, I
Can't
can't even
is
think
it
of the name of
blue?
it. It's orange
Oh, it's
color.
orange. Oh, Lord.
I can't even think the name of it.
Vermilion?
No, no, it's
Well,
but oh my God, I will remember.
Yeah,
It's
right?
just,
I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
no, it's just like, because I was thinking about the other day when we were at the Gem Mineral Show, and I haven't seen any specimens of this stuff for a long time.
The rare one.
Well,
Yeah. It's like the
Wolfenite.
ones that are like crystally.
Wolfenite.
Wolfenite, that's what it is, yeah. I know I'd remember.
And that's a type of crystal that you would not cut.
yeah,
It's
just-
something that would sit like a bouquet, like a
yeah, it's a
crystal.
specimen piece, yeah. You don't, highly, very expensive.
And a
one
lot of
thing.
people come into our booth and say, oh, look at all the crystals. And there's another, that's a whole nother issue too, because there's not everything's a crystal. There's rocks,
Yeah.
there's stones, you know what I mean? There's different types of things, and they're not just crystals.
Yeah. And another
But
one
that's
was, it's called Epidote.
Oh, yeah, he loved that.
It's a green crystal. It's found up around Dickey Lakes Wilderness. It's very, very dark green. It's one of the first things I started collecting with my son when we were able to get way up high in the Sierras. And it's really beautiful, but it's dark green. It's not another. You can't cut and polish it because it's real flaky and really fragile. But it's another beautiful stone.
Well, thank you so much for coming on my show today. Your story is very great. And it's Rory Inspirations, and there's no other Rory Inspirations. If anyone just Googles it or goes on social,
You can
that's
find it everywhere. Yeah, it's Instagram. It's Rory's Inspiration Rory's Inspirations, and then Facebook Rory's Inspirations. You can Google it. It's everywhere.
We'll try not to flood you with DMs, but if you need to talk to them,
Yeah.
obviously they'll answer.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sparkle.
Thank you for coming on our show today.
Thank you for having me, Sparkle. I'm glad to be here.
Well, I'm really excited about what you do because we kind of have a theme on today's show. We're talking about mental health. It's always mental health awareness, right? I mean, there's all year long. So tell us about how you got into this field.
So I love telling my story about this because who, you know, when they're little says, I want to be a psychologist. I want to listen to people's stuff all day. That was not my journey at all. I'm actually a musician, and I was in college, and I didn't declare a major at all. So my junior year, I was like, sis needs a degree because I don't want to be a super singer. I got to get out of here.
You know what's funny is at the moment I saw you, I thought that you could sing. That was just...
Yeah, I do. I sing, I play. It paid my way through college.
Really?
And partly through grad school, yes.
That's impressive. A lot of people don't make money as a musician, so that means you are really good. And I saw that. That's funny.
Yeah, so shameless plug, keep up with your hobbies, even if you're in the field. It's great for mental health. But junior year, I said, what is the shortest major that's going to get me out of here on time? And I said, boop, 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 psychology. Cool, I'm a psychology major. So
really? How was that going to get you into? I thought there was a lot of classes.
There were 9 at the time beyond my general education, so some of them did overlap, and I had all the music for the electives. So there were 9 classes that I had to take left, and I said, cool, I'll do them over the last 2 years. I was done, and I was like, wait, there are no jobs. Let me go to grad school. So I went to grad school.
Very good. That was the extra education you needed, right?
Yeah. So I tell people all the time, I just kind of stumbled into it. And I see a lot of people who are worried about their future too. A lot of anxiety, a lot of I'm behind everybody else. And I tell people, you've got plenty of time. It's never too late. Just calm down. You have time. So I just kind of stumbled into it, and it stuck, and it worked, and I've had great experiences, met great clients along the way, other, business owners, but that's all a part of my story of, becoming and developing and everything.
So where'd you graduate? Where'd you grow up and all that?
I am a Fresno native. I was born in Bakersfield, raised in Fresno. I'm an alum of the Sunnyside High Doctors Academy, and I still do some mentoring of students there, and I'm an alum of Fresno Pacific University.
I went there.
Go Sunbirds.
Right there.
Yeah, okay. Then I went to Fuller Seminary and did all of my graduate work there, and I am currently back in school. I said I never would, but I'm back in school getting a master's in clinical psychopharmacology.
You just can't stop, can you?
Yeah, I can't. So hopefully when they pass legislation for California psychologists to be able to prescribe, I'll be on the front end of that. So we're hoping to push some legislation forward on that.
Wow, that's a lot. So now you like it. You actually like something that was supposed to be just a job.
Oh, I love what I do. And I like, one of my favorite things is the flexibility. So I do a lot of things. I have my private practice, LA Psychological Services. LA is a word. It means to soothe or diminish worry or fear. So I have my private practice. We've grown, we've expanded slowly through the years. I've got a team of, great clinicians, but I also serve as the clinical director of a local nonprofit who focuses on and serves on families impacted by domestic violence. So there's a lot that I do. I do things like this and, speaking and
oh my goodness,
engaging with faith communities. I'm really big on like the psychoeducation and, so the previous segments, really spoke to me and kind of what we do, and you were saying the mental health theme. So I love getting like lay people's stories because that's really what it's all about. I'm in it for the stories.
Oh my goodness. So, okay, so how long have you had the Leia, and like what is it all that you guys do there?
So LA Psychological Services, my story behind that is I graduated in 2015, came back and did some postdoc hours, but because of the way the Central Valley is set up, there aren't a lot of opportunities for psychologists because people don't know the distinction between, just the different mental health practitioners, like what distinguishes you from a clinical counselor versus a social
So
worker.
what is it? In a very
So-
quick as like, I know we're not going to spend
The
a lot of time.
bread and butter of a psychologist is we are able to do psychological testing. And that's, to answer your question, a lot of what we do at LA Psychological Services. We offer therapy, we do talk therapy, but sometimes people will come to us and they say, I've been on X medication for years, it's not working. I have talked to this therapist, that therapist, they can't quite figure out what's going on with me. Can you help? So psychologists have our niche is testing. So we can give tests to people to figure out, narrow down what the diagnosis is, because it really does impact your whole treatment planning process.
But you can't prescribe meds.
We cannot prescribe yet. And I say that in good faith.
If
yet.
somebody needs meds, it's come to you, where do you direct them to?
Right. We refer out to Fresno County Department of Behavioral Health. We refer out, we try and have relationships with other providers in the area who, can prescribe. So a nurse practitioner can prescribe, a psychiatrist can prescribe. We generally will refer out to a psychiatrist or some of the bigger organizations, but it's one of the reasons why we need prescriptive authority as psychologists.
Right. So at what point do people need to come to you to come to that clinic? At what point, is it, you just said when you've exhausted all your resources, should you do that in the beginning phase before you go through all that? Like, what point should we come to you?
Quickly. Quick, fast, and in a hurry. Do not get to the breaking point. I tell people this all the time, and a lot of people come in and they're embarrassed about what their story is and they minimize their problems. Like, I know a lot of people have it worse, and I'm like, that's why they have it worse, because they're doing what you're doing. They're waiting because they feel shame, they feel guilt, they feel like I should be able to push through. These are just first world problems.
Right.
And I tell people, no, when you know something's off, you address it right away. You come to us right away as quickly as possible.
How does it work with insurances, though? Do a lot of people not come in because of finances, or is that something you guys work with?
Some people don't. So our client base is mainly Medi-Cal population, but we do take the private insurances.
Oh, right on. So
Right.
you take everybody.
We take everybody, and we do actually have a sliding scale for people who are underinsured or uninsured, but we haven't had to do a lot of that because a lot of people, especially during COVID, were able to get connected with, healthcare coverage. So we very rarely do we have to turn people away unless they're so severe that they would need a higher level of care or would need more comprehensive wraparound services where you need like a case manager and a psychiatrist, like all in one place.
And then do a lot of people get referred to you, like perhaps like in the prison system, or perhaps to keep different jobs, or do people have to go and see you guys or utilize your services in order to get certain things or keep certain things, or how does that work?
Sometimes they do. A lot of our referrals come from word of mouth. They come from the insurance companies. People like the appeal, number one, of having a doctoral level provider, because they say, like, my previous therapist was great, but they didn't quite get where I didn't quite get where I needed to get. I need something a little heavier. So they like the appeal of a doctoral level provider. Some of them mistakenly think that I can prescribe medication.
I would think that happens a lot.
Yeah. So it happens, but a lot of people actually stay on board once they have their initial session with either me or one of my clinicians on staff. They decide to stay on board, because the best combination for treatment is actually, if you're at the level where you need medication, is medication and therapy combined.
And I know everybody's like situation's different, but no one needs to be with you forever, right? Is there usually like kind of like a time? How does that work out? How long do we know that we should stick it out, or how does that work?
Right. I love that question. Thank you for asking it, because a lot of people will be hesitant and they'll say, I'm only here because my spouse said, or my kids said, or my dog said. But, I'm not crazy. I need you to know I'm not crazy. I'm like, I get it. Like, everybody just needs a little help here and there. But right from the very first session, I prep my clients and I say, listen, the main goal of therapy is to not need it anymore. You're going to go through this process. You're going to feel great about it. You're going to love the progress that you're seeing. But there will come a time and you'll probably know before I know, when you're done. You don't, yes, you may have had years worth of trauma, but that doesn't mean you have to have a year's worth of therapy. And that is
And that's
one of,
really good to explain that too.
yeah, I always joke with my clients like, hey, it's about time that you're thinking about firing me because you're looking good, you're doing well. So my clients always enjoy that, and I always check in along the way. So we see people, because we're private practice, we can see people a little longer, but in general, 6 to 12 months, and some people can do it in a few sessions. It doesn't
Really?
take long. It doesn't take long to, spark something in someone that, produces life-changing results. So I've seen someone for 3 or 4 sessions and don't see them again. And they go off and I guess they flourish. But I also have people who have gone on and a few years later they come back. They come back to do some maintenance work, or they say, hey, I hit a rough patch here. Like I need to start this up again. So that's how it works for us.
And what have you noticed with the stigma surrounding mental health? Because even though as a society, community, we're getting way better, way far advanced, we could talk about it. It's not super bad to go, we can kind of go without, like you said, the crazy, like we're more like attuned to like everyone can go to therapy. But I'm sure you still see where it's like, in different cultures, or perhaps like with Black men, they're like, oh, I'm not going to do that. I don't need that. How have you seen it come along and have the progress that we've made as a society?
Interestingly, where I've seen the most resistance is in faith communities.
Really?
They're like, oh, you just need Jesus. Sparkle, just pray. You're all right. Don't worry. Be blessed.
Okay.
I've seen the most resistance in faith communities. And that's not because they're, against mental health, but I think it's more of Jesus should be enough, and maybe my faith is weak if I feel like I have to go talk to another human being, when I should be able to talk to, whoever my divine,
That's
support
interesting.
is.
I've never heard that, but that makes so much sense. Because there's a lot of guilt and shame in those communities, and yeah, God should be. I get that would be
Right.
like something.
Right.
So how do they overcome those barriers? How do you help them with that?
Honestly, I engage with the community. Like, people will see me in the store. I end up talking to people in the store. I pick clients up at the store. If I'm like at a school, because we have a contract with a local school, if I go on site and just kind of, look around, check in on how the operations are going, I get from parents. So really anywhere out in the community, I am the minister of music at my church, so people who come in and out, the music draws them, but then they realize, so I get people that way. But really just by engaging with the community, like being out and about, not just being, just a doctor who's closed away in an office and I want you to come to me.
Yeah.
No, I go to people. So that's really how we, start to erase that stigma.
Have you ever lost a patient to suicide, or like people in your world, maybe not you per se, but people like there in your world, and then how do you guys overcome that?
Right. So I'm going to answer this twofold. Number one, I have not personally lost a client to suicide, but I have very close friends in the field who have. And I also have close friends in the field who have committed suicide as well. So just knowing that it can touch any corner of life. It can touch you at any station you're at, whether you're high up on the mountain or down in the valley. Suicide can, everybody knows someone who has been impacted by suicide. Look at the segment before mine.
Right.
They were impacted by suicide, and those stories are so prevalent. There's a lot of shame around it, a lot of guilt. So how we deal with it, number one, any good therapist, and this is what I want to make very clear, any good therapist, if you're seeing a therapist, ask your therapist if they've had therapy. If they say no, you might want to keep looking.
At one point, wasn't it like a law that you had to get therapy to be a therapist, or that's not a thing anymore? You don't have to.
No, that's
only...
not a thing, and it's highly recommended in your programs, but, a good therapist will know I I need somewhere to put all this stuff in addition to my own stuff, right? Because we're still people too. We're still humans too. We still go through our own personal traumas. We still go through, crises of faith, crisis of identity, financial woes, whatever the case may be. We all go through problems. So we require a lot of care and maintenance as well. And that's why I'm really invested also in mentoring and pouring into caregivers, and which includes clinicians and first responders as well.
Wow, yeah, because everyone needs to kind of be on the same page if you guys are all helping the same people, right?
Right.
And then what is your staff like at your location right now?
So right now, LA Psychological Services, we are Black owned and Black led, but as we're growing, we're diversifying. So we have a psychologist on staff, we have a nationally certified school psychologist on staff, we have an almost licensed social worker on staff, we have a psychological associate on staff. So we have.
And they're all there at the location?
They're all there at the
So
location.
you have a one-stop shop almost.
Yeah, so the only thing we don't do is
Right.
prescribe or provide case management, but hopefully sometime soon. But I have different disciplines, but also even just culturally and ethnically diverse as well.
And when did you start? You say 2015?
2018.
2018. And so what are some of the stories that you could tell us of like the growth that you've seen there in that community?
In terms of just our clientele
Yeah.
or just the business?
In your clientele?
In our
what
clientele.
Have you seen?
We have seen, we have a lot of success stories, but we also have a lot of people who, sometimes it's not time. There is such a thing as it's not time. So we've seen a few people, kind of go off and, maybe come back at a better time. We have a lot of people who, once you get that diagnosis right, we send them to their psychiatrist, their symptoms are under control, they're doing well. And I think that's where we see a lot of we get a return on our investment in terms of like, I went to school and racked up all this debt and, what's the return on investment? Really seeing people thrive because there's a lot of people who are lost in the mental health system, waiting months and months for a therapist or a psychiatrist, and they don't know where to go.
Why is that? What's the problem with that? Why is that happening?
A shortage. There's a shortage of mental health providers. There is a shortage, and especially in the Central Valley. Like, we have a lot, don't get me wrong, but for the amount of people we have, just the sheer numbers of the population, there aren't nearly enough. And then on top of that, there aren't enough providers of color, linguistically diverse
Right.
providers. So people aren't always feeling comfortable going to who they're seeing, because there are certain things about, like, their
Like,
cultural
how do you know
things.
my experience?
Right, exactly.
I totally understand
Right.
that.
Cultural things that, people don't want to have to explain, like why I'm doing this herbal remedy instead of going to the doctor or something. Like, are you going to call CPS on me about that? So certain like cultural
That
things
is a
that you
lot
have
of
to-
trust.
Right. So.
Wow. And then starting in 2018, I mean, I can only imagine how the pandemic affected you. Like, first of all, now you have a lot of people that actually need mental health, because they had to deal with that you were
Right.
not anticipating when you started that.
Right.
And then people seeing you. So how did all that play out?
So COVID was both a positive and negative experience for us. Positive in that, more people were coming to services, and really it wasn't really COVID related. It was because COVID made you go and sit your butt down somewhere and you don't have anywhere to go. They say you can't go out. You gotta just sit at home and be with yourself. So all the workaholics were coming out of the woodworks, all of like the stressed out working people, where they're like, listen, I have this trauma that I've been sitting on for years, and I can't go anywhere.
Right.
I can't escape it anymore. I need some help. So we saw a lot of that during COVID. The downside was that we saw it tenfold, and we just could not keep up with the referrals. And even still, like, it's hard to keep up with the referrals.
And were you doing a lot of stuff on Zoom because of all of that?
So one of the great things about LA, and is one of the things that we pride ourselves in, was we really invested a lot of like money in developing cutting edge technology, like being on the front end, like digital testing, things like that. So we already had a telehealth platform
Nice.
established.
That's
totally electronic health record system.
Smart.
Right.
You didn't even
But
know
we
how much that was going to be.
Yeah, exactly. We never used it. I had maybe like 1 or 2 people, and now like that's really most of what we're doing is telehealth. And the good thing about that is we're able to see people like across the state. Have clients, you know, up in the Bay Area, down in SoCal, more students who are away at school. So our reach is really broad now.
And then it was interesting, you were saying, you know, a lot of times people are afraid of what they're going to tell a therapist because then they're going to be like, oh my gosh, are you going to call, are you going to call this and that? At what point do you really have to intervene? Because, you know, if something is wrong with you and you're trying to fix it, you know, you want to be completely honest. So if people are coming to you and telling you like they lost their temper with their kid and be their kid, if someone comes to you and tells you that they're struggling with potentially having thoughts of being a child molester, at what point, you know, they're coming to you and trying to work through it? At what point do you have to intervene and say, no, we're going to, you know, take action, any type of legal action against them?
So one of the things is that we consult. Every clinician has, you know, a liability insurance policy. You know, we also, if you're a member of an association, you can call the legal team and say, hey, what are my options here? And it's also in like our legal and ethical guidelines. Like when you take your law and ethics exam, it gives you like when you need to call, when you don't.
And that's hard.
It's very hard because a lot of the time it falls in a gray area.
Right.
But our policy, just because of the clientele we have, we typically tend to be really open about that, and we talk with our clients about like, hey, you know, this is something that may be reportable, and you know, I'm gonna have to call at least the hotline, at least just to consult. And you know, it's not my job to determine it, it's their job to determine. But in the meantime, let's get you some skills so we don't have to have this happen anymore.
Okay.
But I don't think I've ever really had clients be really irate about it. I think it's more of a weight lifted and a burden off of them because they know they're beyond the point of needing intervention. So they're like, oh yeah, I figured it would go in that direction, but we kind of walk them through the process as much as we can.
That's good, because it is going to be like kind of a double-edged sword if you're telling them they're doing the right thing by getting the help, but then they might be kind of incriminating.
Exactly, and again, there are only certain, like, and one of our main things is, you know, to protect their confidentiality, but there are really just 3 main exceptions to that. That's if you're a danger to yourself or someone else, if you tell me any instances of child abuse, elder abuse, dependent adult abuse, and if my records were ever subpoenaed by the court. So that's kind of in our consent process, so they kind of know, you know, first session, like here's what, so, and they can choose whether or not they want to disclose. Now generally, if they stick with the process, people will end up disclosing some of those things, and we remind them then, like, hey, remember, I am a mandated reporter, and this is what that may mean for you. So either they will leave and not come back, but a lot of the time they'll go ahead and work with us to, again, get the help that they need.
And I know you're a super busy woman, but you're also super helpful. Where do people go if they just want to like ask advice? Like, do you have some social media that you kind of accept DMs, or you can kind of say, here, go there, or make an appointment at the office at this time? Can we contact you in any way like that?
Yes, so we do, we take all of our appointments via our website. Everything you need is on our website. You can even just type in if you don't want to call. A lot of people are like, I don't want to call because I don't like leaving messages. So our website is www.allaypsych.com. That's ALLAYPSYCH.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. You answered so many questions, and I could spend a lot of time with you and ask you so much more. So maybe like every 6 months or a year, you can come back and we can.
That's great. But, you know, mental health treatment is for everyone. I'll go wherever I need to go.
I appreciate that. You are awesome.
Thank you so much for having me, Sparkle.
Thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
So explain to our viewers who you are and what you do.
I'm Mark McCormick, and I do some acting and modeling, and anything else I can do behind the scenes as well. So
tell us about some of your experiences.
well, it all started about 13 years ago. I had the gastric bypass. I was 418 pounds.
Wow.
And I'd lost pretty much all that weight in 1 year. And the hospital had me come on, and I modeled for them for 6 years and did a commercial for them and stuff.
What was that like? Because I mean, did you go
It
from
was-
life being like behind the scenes to now being in front of the scenes a little bit?
I had never done anything at that point. It just all just happened. And then after it started rolling, just more things kept happening. And I don't know how to explain that. It's just, I went from being that 418 down to 200 and modeled for 6 years at the hospital. After that, it went into music videos with a parody group called Oil Del Royals. And then from there, it just...
So what did you do in the music group?
in the music video, I was just an extra in it.
Okay.
I mean, we had one where I was robbing a pot shop.
Oh, how
And,
fun.
Yeah, and,
I love those like story ones.
yeah,
They're fun.
Yeah, and they were making fun of different music videos and videos. They made fun of a Bird Box one, and it was kind of crap, but yeah, just what it is, you know.
So, you know, so I had a close friend that had done the procedure, and then it was very daunting to him because he said he wasn't used to getting attention. And he didn't know if he liked it. He actually didn't really like it. And he's like, I don't like people liking me just because I'm thinner. I lost like, you know, more than half my body size. What were your thoughts on it? Like, how did it feel? Because it had to be like this weird experience you got thrown into. What was that like? Did you have similar experiences like that?
You know, people opening doors and being nice afterwards, that was strange because from being a bigger person, people just weren't as nice after losing the weight and being who I am now, you know, and how I look now. I guess people just liked it, I guess, and so they're all opening doors and stuff, and it just messes with your head a little bit, and people are like, you know, I don't know if I like this or what, you know.
Right.
So it's just something that they don't tell you whenever, you know, you're starting that whole process, that you have to deal with it psychologically as well. So, you know, but I'm a strong dude, so I handle it just fine.
How did you get to that size in the first place?
From drinking, mainly.
Really?
I mean, yeah, I mean, I come from a big family as it is, both sides. But, I mean, I worked in the prisons as well when I was younger. And every day after work, I was going to the bars and drinking. And, I mean, that will definitely put the weight on you, lots of beer, you know. So, I mean...
So you're a corrections officer?
Yeah, I was for the state and stuff, yeah. And, yeah, I'm not going to go there.
So what do you do now?
Now I'm just doing acting, modeling, and various work on the side, you know. But mainly my main thing is acting and modeling. So
That is so cool.
yeah. And I mean, I've done, like I just had one called Abe by Brett Lark with Angel Studios that just came out, and then also Naked Zombie Girl's back with Ricky Bird.
He's been on here too, yeah.
That was a good one, and we just seen that. He just premiered that in Bakersfield February 24th on his birthday.
I wanted to go so
It was great.
bad.
Yeah, it was great. And then I have something else with Hallmark that will be released later this year. That's a feature with Jodie Sweetin, but I cannot say anything else there.
Not even a title? That might change by then too. They do that a lot with these movies.
I don't know if I can say the title or anything
Okay.
right now. I don't know.
So we're gonna follow you, and then the moment you can tell us more, you're gonna tell us more on your social media. Okay? Is that a good deal?
That's fine.
But that's so awesome. I love Jodie Sweetin. Was she cool?
Yeah, totally cool. I mean, a lot of people think that these people are, you know, so much taller than everybody and all this other stuff, and they're just regular people. They're just like you and me. I mean, just as normal as can be. Yeah, it's actually pretty cool, you know.
So where did you learn how to act? It's one thing that you got, you know, fit, you look good, you know, in front of the camera, but how did you get like personality and all that? Who taught you all that?
I've just kind of had the charisma and the attitude throughout my life, I think, and I don't know. I was always popular growing up, and just I don't know. It's just me, you know. When it comes to production, it's been mainly people seeking me out lately. So
It still takes a little bit. I mean, you still
it
have
does
to
a
have.
little bit.
You still have to have like, where do you take scripts?
Yeah.
and make that not where you're just reading lines. So how'd you learn that yourself or get self-taught?
The script part?
Yeah, taking it, making your own, and acting to where people aren't like, oh, he's just line reading. Like, how'd you get to actually be an actor?
It's just reading monologue and dialogue from certain friends that I have that are, higher up in different industries. Then I'll take their scripts, and I'm not in them or nothing, but I'll go through them, and I've practiced with them, and but a lot of stuff just comes to me naturally, really, and there's no BS there. So, and I don't know, I just keep going, and the talent stuff just is there, and I'm just going off of just me being me, really.
So what do you like to play better, a good guy or a bad guy?
Both, really. Both, really, because kind of throughout my life I've been both. So, yeah.
You hone into that.
Yeah, I like both sides of that. I don't want to be seen as one way or the other. I'd rather just, do various parts, of being good, being bad, and see what happens,
And then modeling, how's that like? Because that is a lot different than acting.
Yeah.
That could actually be more exhausting because you have to pose
Yeah.
in certain ways for a long time. People don't realize sometimes how exhausting modeling is. You're not just standing there and looking cute. So
Yeah.
how is that working out?
Modeling, with filming lately, I haven't been doing so much modeling.
So how are you keeping the weight off now? I mean, tell us about that journey.
Now, I watch what I eat all the time. I work out every day. I stay on that regimen.
Not
nonstop.
excessive drinking, obviously.
I don't drink at all. I don't drink at all anymore. I don't intake anything, and that's bad. The only thing bad that I can kind of have is those Reese's Thins, those small Reese's. Outside that, I can't really have anything because it'll mess up my stomach. It messes up chemicals and stuff. Just I don't know. So I stick with eating fish, chicken, high protein diet, and that works with exercising every day anyways. So.
You get asked a lot about that, especially since you kind of are the face and you did the commercials. People kind of come up and talk about it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I bet you've inspired a lot of people to get this surgery.
Yeah, I have actually, but I tell both sides of it, because everybody thinks that it's a fix-all, but it's not, and you got to be able to be ready to totally change yourself, and then it's a battle within yourself, I can tell you that.
Well, and like they say, there's a lot of people that revert, that the percentage rate's kind of high on that, so you kind of repair them.
I've had two people in my family that had it done and got big again. So
right.
Yeah, I've watched it within my own family of all that stuff. So it's just, it's all in your mind, really. You got to be ready to change, and
You got to be mentally strong, just
yeah,
as well as
mentally
physically.
strong. Yeah, if you're not mentally strong, it's gonna mess with you a little bit. So.
So where can we follow you? And then if we want to DM you about the weight loss or about some acting tidbits, are you good at responding to DMs?
Yeah. I am.
Awesome. So what's your Instagram?
My Instagram is just mark.w.mccormick. It's just my name. And Facebook, you can find me under Mark McCormick as well. So it's just as simple as that.
Thank you so much for coming on my show today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Felt right in the moment, felt right in the summertime. It felt right drinking cherry wine with you. Just wanted to own it, just wanted to take the time, learn all the things that I could about you. Now it's such a mess here, oh, we are just stressed here. Used to be so easy with you. Now I must confess here, oh, I must confess, dear, don't think I'm in love with you. Winter is coming and I don't know what to do, and there's no more use in running, no more running to you, and I don't want your loving, I don't want to be just friends, knowing all this time we were playing pretend.
It's a mystery.